And welcome everybody. I'm Justin. Welcome to Fast Entrepreneur. And today I want to talk to you about one of the number one investing principles, and that's diversification. So let's get into it. I don't have an intro, so I guess I'll just do a panorama, real quick. Here, taking a walk in the park. But so let's get into it. So diversification, what is it? Why is it so important? First, let me start. This is not financial advice, not a financial advisor. Do your own research. This is merely for educational purposes. All right, let's get into it. So diversification, it's probably one of the most important rules when it comes to investing. What does that mean? Well, obviously everybody wants to get the maximum returns, right? You want to make the most amount of money. But the flip side is well, how much risk are you willing to take? And there seems to be the more risk you take, the greater chances that you could have greater rewards, but obviously the more risk you take, the greater you can fall. So diversification, what that allows you to do is basically, it says, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Because if you drop that basket and that basket falls, what happens to all the eggs? Well, good chance all those eggs are going to be broken and then you're left with nothing. So diversification says, why don't you have multiple baskets? Why don't you have a lot of baskets? And inside those baskets, spread out the risk. And by doing so, what you can actually do, and this is modern portfolio theory, but you can actually create a portfolio where you can maximize your overall return, where at the same time you can minimize your risk. And so that's obviously, that's a great thing. And now, how do you do that? Well, I mean, the easiest way for most traditional investors to do this is through an index fund. I actually got to meet, before he passed, John Bogle. He's the founder of Vanguard Investments, and you might be familiar. And Bogle, he was, he's the guy that came up with the whole idea of index funds in the first place. People thought he was crazy, yada, yada, yada. But he showed over time, he showed the numbers, he showed the proof, and he merely said, I believe that if people understood this information, that they would invest differently. And obviously they have, and over $1 trillion is, rushed into Vanguard investment funds, mostly index funds. And, so now the returns, listen, you're probably not going to hit it out of the park with an index fund, right? You're not going to get a home run, but that's not the point. The point is that you're probably also not gonna strike out, every single time as well. So it creates you got to put your money somewhere, and you want to keep your money moving and working for you. So index funds make up the majority probably of most people's holdings in their brokerage, and if they have retirement accounts, pension accounts, 401ks, 403bs, etc. So on this channel, though, you notice I talk a lot about cryptocurrency. And why is that? Well, one, to me, it's exciting. It's a brand new technology that I think is going to revolutionize the world, kind of in a similar way, if not in a bigger way than the internet did. And that's the blockchain, and that's what most of these cryptocurrencies are built upon. But two, as an investment asset, it's very new, and so a lot of people don't think of it quite that way yet, but it's surely happening right in front of our eyes. Mass adoption to cryptocurrency is happening. But I don't think that many people have really understood, number one, how to attain cryptocurrency, and if you have, how to get exposure and proper exposure into your portfolio. And because now you can say, okay, well, if I'm going to invest in crypto, what percentage of my total portfolio should I add, and what's the best way to diversify so that I can maximize return and minimize risk? So listen, this is going to be different for everybody. And again, this isn't advice. This is up for you to kind of think about. But, if your risk profile, right, if you are you like to take risk, or you're younger and you can take risk, or if the pot of money that you're looking at, is more speculative and you really don't care too much whether it goes up or down in large swings, then you might want to consider a higher amount in asset classes such as cryptocurrency. But if you are on the other end of the spectrum, you might not want to consider as much, but you also have to consider that by not investing in cryptocurrency, you're taking a risk, right? By not being involved, by not playing the game, by not getting exposure, you are potentially missing out on, big future gains. So you have to decide what that proper balance is for you. And, listen, for myself, I think that we are at the age where, yes, I think that most people should have exposure and have some crypto in their portfolio. But whether or not that's, less than 1% for you, whether or not that's, 3%, 5%, 20%, I mean, that's totally up to you. But I can tell you, you really have to figure out, what's going to make sense for you and what's going to, make the most sense for your portfolio. And again, diversification is key. Now, I'm not running the numbers here, but normally, and listen, I don't think a lot of people run the numbers. I think they'll probably just read reports from companies or folks that do. But, they'll run the numbers and they'll look and say, okay, so what happens if I add this asset or this asset or this asset? And then they look at the correlations between these assets and these asset classes, and they come up with an optimal portfolio. And so, without getting into the nitty-gritty details, that's up for you to decide. Now, why do I say that, there's a risk of not getting involved? Well, because there is. And especially with an asset class that could be so explosive, just as the blockchain industry has been over the last several years, and it's still very early, so it's very volatile, right? It'll go up in huge spurts, and we've seen major corrections, 80, 90%, and you sit there for a few years and your money makes nothing during those years. But over the long term so far, and again, we don't have much history to go on because Bitcoin, being the first blockchain crypto here, was in 2009. So, we only have a small beginning here, and many of the altcoins are just being birthed. But if you don't get involved, let's just say Bitcoin, for example, and I'll just give you like my example, right? So let's say when I was first kind of really, playing around and getting into Bitcoin was about $700 a coin. This was in the last bull run cycle. It was around 2017. Today, Bitcoin's around 60,000. So, I don't know the math exactly, but, I could do it quickly. It's, that's, well, let's see, 700. So it's probably up about 80 times or something like that, roughly. 80 times your money. So for every $1,000 that you had invested in Bitcoin just 4 years ago, turns into somewhere around maybe 75 or 85 or $80,000. And so that's why I say not being involved, right? I mean, worst case is you never saw that you put $1,000 in 4 years ago and you never see it again and you lost $1,000. But in a well-diversified portfolio, if you had 100,000 or 200,000 or 500,000 in your portfolio, $1,000 is kind of it's kind of like a drop in the pond, if you will. If you lost it, you're probably not going to really notice it. But on the upside, an extra gain of $75,000, you might notice that. I mean, it starts to take up a larger portion of the pond. It starts to grow in comparison with everything else. So, that's certainly something to consider. And so, I'll leave it there with you. It is what it is. I think that it's not going away anytime soon. But it's volatile, it's speculative. But yet I feel like it is here. It's coming about faster and faster, and it probably deserves a little bit of attention to know if this is something that you want to include in your investment portfolio. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hang out with these geese, take a little walk, get some exercise. Hope this helps you. Feel free, you can leave any comments, you can like, and if you found this video helpful, share it with your friends, your family, etc. But always, do your own research. And that's all I got to say. Be blessed. Have a great day.